Hi, welcome back to Good Cube Kitchen. My name is Yassine Butler, and I know it's been a while since we've been able to make anything, and I'm so excited to be back with you today. I've gotten to do a whole bunch of new things since we've been gone. I've been experimenting and trying out new setups, and I'm excited to show you what I've come up with. Today, we're going to be making one of my favorite things in the world, which is mint ice cream. I love chocolate chip mint ice cream. It's actually one of me and my mother's favorites. And I just remember growing up always getting that green ice cream with the little chocolate chunks. And today I want to make a brownie as well. And so instead of putting chocolate chunks in my mint ice cream, I'm just going to make a delightful mint ice cream. It won't be green, there's no reason for that. And a brownie to go with it, so we'll have a mint chocolate brownie sundae. You excited as I am? I hope you are. Let's get started. So we're going to start off with our basic gelato base, which is 2 1/4 cup of lactose-free milk, 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar, and a new ingredient that I'm going to be adding all the time is 1/4 cup of corn syrup. The reason for the corn syrup is it's supposed to make it really easy to scoop no matter how long you freeze it. So that's going to be a new part of my recipe here forward. The next thing I'm going to add is our cornstarch slurry, which is 2 tablespoons of cornstarch and just enough milk to completely dissolve it. Going to give this a good stir for now. We're going to add over 3/4 of a cup of heavy cream. This is our base gelato mix. Going to give that a good stir. And we're just going to keep stirring until it begins to thicken. An easy way to test whether or not it is warm enough to temper your egg is to just test it on the back of your hand. That's why it's called scalding. Going to whisk our egg yolk while streaming in our tempered milk, tempering our egg yolk so that it does not curdle. Make a slight mess for good luck, and then add it over into the rest of our custard. At this point, you're going to reduce the heat and continue to stir for about 10 minutes. Once your ice cream mix starts to get thick enough to leave wakes, you know that it is almost prepared and you can reduce or turn off your heat. Continue to stir for another 2 to 3 minutes, allowing the residual heat to continue to thicken your custard. Now, one thing that you'll notice is that I did not put in any extract in the hot batter. Because we're going with a peppermint extract, you want to add that at the end once it is nice and cool, because the flavor will lessen very quickly in the heat. It's not as strong of an extract flavor. So we're going to add that after it cools and just before we pour it into our ice cream maker. Now that this is nice and thick, I'd say thick with about 1 C, we're going to pour it over into our container and refrigerate for 2 hours to overnight. Now that our ice cream batter is cooling, let's get working on our brownies. This recipe actually comes from Tasty, and I don't always do Tasty recipes, but this one looked too good not to try. To pour some warm butter over 8 ounces of good dark chocolate. Now, the thing that I did that they didn't do is I actually incorporated in browned butter because I prefer brown butter over just regular butter. I'm also going to add over some instant coffee. The recipe calls for espresso powder, but I could not find espresso powder anywhere. So some good instant coffee will provide a similar effect. So we're going to add over to our stand mixer 1 cup of brown sugar. Now the recipe called for only a half a cup of brown sugar, but you know how I feel about brown sugar. So I'm also going to add over 1.5 cup of white sugar because I do know that the moisture differences between white and brown sugar may cause a problem towards the end of my recipe, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm also going to include over about 1/4 cup of cocoa powder, a little bit of vanilla extract. You know me, I just like to eyeball it. When it feels right, it's right. And then you're going to add over your eggs. But I'm going to start my stand mixer before adding over my eggs so that it can get going and not making eggs. I'm going to add the eggs 1 or 2 at a time just to get it started. Once it's started, then I can add over all the rest at the same time. The thing that made me really want to try this recipe is this recipe calls for allowing this to just whip and whip and whip together for about 10 minutes to get a whole lot of air into it to make your brownies extra gooey. And I'm all for extra gooey brownies. So while that's going, I'm actually going to, the last thing that you're going to need to add over to your total recipe is 1 cup of flour and the last ½ cup of cocoa powder, a little bit of salt, and you're all good. Now that our 10 minutes is up, we are going to begin to stream in our chocolate ganache. And chocolate ganache is just a simple, fancy way of saying oil and chocolate mixed together into a nice, beautiful, rich, and smooth sauce. All right, so now that our wet ingredients are thoroughly combined and mixed with so much air, we're going to just tap this clean, remove the bowl from the mixer, take our mixer off camera, one of the things things that I've always wanted that I got over my break was a cone sieve. I've always loved watching people use these. They're so cool. We're going to include the rest of our cocoa powder. Now we're just going to lightly combine all of our ingredients. An interesting thing that the recipe calls for is for you to take the brownies out about 20 minutes into the cooking process and slam them on the table. The point of this is to allow them to lose some of that air so that they don't crack and that they bake all the way through in the middle. So we're going to do that. After the slam, we have about 25 minutes left of baking, so I am going to start our ice cream. I already incorporated the mint extract into it, and so now I just have to pour it over into our maker. Since I put the mint in while it was still cold, it's really strong, even though normally if you put it in when it was hot, it would dissipate some. And so it's got a really nice, strong mint flavor, and I could eat mint ice cream every day. It's funny because my mind automatically puts the flavor of chocolate in the mint ice cream because I'm so used to them being combined. I can't wait to try this mint ice cream brownie sundae. It's gonna be so good. All right. From the oven. I'm so excited to see how well this works. Got a bit of unevenness in the cooking, which we can address the next time I bake in this. As you can see, it frees up straight from the bottom. Oh, I'm so excited. Let's go around the counter and see what it looks like. So let's see what our final product actually looks like. I'm going to free them from the bottom first. Let's attempt to free them from the top. This is hot. That didn't work. Try it one more time. With the gloves on. definitely very stuck. Not terrible. But that brownie though. It's so rich. But moist. One thing I thought of, and I should have done, but I didn't, was reduce the bake time by about 10 minutes. The reason being, having this heat conductor all around each brownie should have reduced the cooking time, and it did. So while these are really moist and crunchy on the outside, which is exactly how I like my brownie, they're not as fudgy as they were in the video. Thick check. I'd say we're about thick with 3 C's, maybe 4. I allowed the ice cream to set in the freezer for 24 hours. And the reason I did that is if you make ice cream right next to a 350-degree oven, it doesn't get as cold as you really want it to. And so it needed an overnight sit, and that's perfectly fine. To keep my brownies nice and moist, I put them in a Ziploc bag. So now we're going to plate. And with plating, I like to get as creative as possible. Because the brownie pan made such small pieces, I decided that I am going to plate them in a butter dish, actually. What? Yes, a butter dish. It is the perfect size to hold these brownies in place while I scoop my ice cream. One of the benefits of allowing to sit in the freezer overnight is that I got to test the corn syrup portion of my recipe. Even though it's set overnight, this is scooping actually pretty easily. So I'm going to start out with the scoop here. Another scoop here. Just want to give me a dollop in between each one. Going to dot each one with a little bit of chocolate for garnish. And finish it off with a little bit of my crystallized honey sea salt. So I hope you are as excited as I am to start on this next phase of our good journey. I'm so excited to be making episodes with you again. I hope you will join me for all of the episodes here in the Good Cube Kitchen. On Sundays with Good Cube Sunday, and every Friday with The Lab. This week, we're going to actually make up a recipe that I came up with in a dream, and I'm really excited to see what all of those flavors that were on that plate taste like together. So As always, thank the good Lord for good food and good times. All that good is good cubed. Please follow me on all social media platforms. That is Good Cubed, GOODCUB 3D on all social media platforms. As always, have a good one. Peace.